Masechta Shabbos, Perek Yudalad, Mishnah Aleph. Shmoyne Shratzim Amurim B'Torah. The Mishnah continues the sugya of the Malacha of Tzad, trapping animals. It focuses on the types of creatures called Shratzim. Shratzim includes any animal that has no legs, such as snakes or worms, or has very short legs, such as mice, or crawling insects which appear to slither along the ground. So the Mishnah also discusses the issue of bruising such creatures on Shabbos. So you have Shmoyne Shratzim Amurim B'Torah. The 8 types of shratzim mentioned in the Torah is coming tumah when they are dead. They are the choylid, the achbar, the tzav, the anaka, the koyach, the letah, the choymet, and the tinshomes. What are they? What are these animals? So the way ArtScroll teaches, although these are the common translations, a choylid is a chulda, the weasel, achbar is a mouse, a tzav is a toad, or some type of frog, anaka is a hedgehog or porcupine. A koyach is a type of lizard, a letah is another type of lizard, a choymet is a snail, and a tinshomes is a mole. Interesting that anaka is a lashon of screaming. But I'll call upon him. So hatzadon, one who traps them on Shabbos, v'achayvel behen, and one who bruises them on Shabbos, is chayiv for malach on Shabbos. As with all malachas, one is chayiv for bruising only if he intended to do it for a constructive purpose, such as to feed the blood-filled flesh to his dog. If his intent was to be mekalkel, just to inflict injury or pain on the animal, he's not chayiv, although it's also probably else. I was going to say Avram and Achai, but that would be wrong. But it would be tzar l'chaim. He's chayiv for bruising them because he caused the blood to leave its place in the flesh of the animal and collect under its skin. Extracting something naturally contained within something else is a malacha called mefarek, which is a tolda of dosh, or it could be tzeveah, since the skin has changed colors. The third opinion is that it's a tolda of sheichet. The part of the animal has lost blood because the wound is considered to have lost some of its life. Although the blood didn't emerge from the body, it's still considered extracted since it left its original position in the body and will not be reabsorbed into it. Now, there's a question because different types of, as we'll see, different types of animals, the blood would go back into it. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. It's like in blue mark, there's different lumdas to it. But regarding other creeping and crawling creatures, shratzim that do not convey tumah, like worms, scorpions, and snakes, hachayvel b'hem potter. One who bruises them on Shabbos is potter. In these shratzim, if a bruise has formed, the body will reabsorb the blood from the bruise, and no malacha of taking out the blood has occurred. Since the removal of the blood is only temporary, it's not chashuv, and it's not considered to have been extracted. In the case of the Shmoyne Shratzim mentioned before, however, one is chayiv for bruising since the blood is not reabsorbed in the body. The reason for this distinction has to do with the thickness of their skins. The Shmoyne Shratzim have thick skin, and the bruise appears only when the inner layer of the skin tears, allowing the blood to collect inside the skin and be visible from outside. The torn skin eventually ruptures completely, causing the blood to leave the body before it has a chance to be reabsorbed. The other shratzim have thin skins, so the bruise is visible without the skin tearing. If there is only a bruise mark, it means that the blood will remain within the body and thus eventually be reabsorbed into the bloodstream, be like a black and blue mark. Even in regard to other shratzim, one is patur only for bruising them. One is chayiv for inflicting a wound that causes them to bleed externally, since the blood to be lost is lost permanently. That would be either a tolda of mavarek, tzeveah, sheichet, whatever the chiyuv of Shabbos is. Hatzadon l'tzayrach, somebody who traps them for a specific need, even for medical purposes, is chayiv for he's chayiv for Shabbos. However, if he traps them shalei l'tzayrach, pater. If he traps them not for a specific need, he's pater because these things are not commonly trapped for their use. Because it's ein b'minay nitzait, it's a malacha she'ein tzricha l'gufa. Because the skin is thin and useless, and the other shratzim are not commonly trapped for the skin or any other use, we assume that the trapper's purpose was not to use the animal, but just to get rid of it, so he didn't perform the malacha for its defined purpose. It will be a malacha she'ein tzricha l'gufa, and obviously this would be going l'shitas Reb Shimon, then one wouldn't be chayav for such a thing. Chayav ha'oifsha b'reshusai, wild animals and birds that are under one's control, they're easily accessible, such as in a small yard or in a house, as we mentioned in Perek Yud Gimel. Hatzadon potter, somebody who traps them as potter, since these animals are easily accessible to the owner with little effort, they're considered already trapped, so any further action of taking them is not going to be tzad. V'achayvel ben chayiv, and somebody bruises them as chayiv, because wild animals and birds also have thick skin, will be similar to the Shmoyne Shratzim. Mishnah Beis. Ein oithen hilmi b'Shabbos. One may not prepare brine, large quantities of salt water on Shabbos. Since a large quantity of salt water is usually used to pickle vegetables, the Chachamim answered preparing it because it appears that they'll be using this to pickle vegetables on Shabbos. So the very act of preparing salt water is usher, even if you will not pickle with it on Shabbos. Pickling is usher midrabanan because it's similar to the malacha of tanning. Just as tanning preserves hides, pickling preserves the food. The malacha of tanning midiraisa, however, does not apply to foods, since they are not preserved to last indefinitely like hides. So the question becomes, halacha l'maisa, when Shabbos is Erev Pesach, you have to make the salt water for karpas. You have to make that earlier. You have to make that before Shabbos. So hilmi is a lot. Avaluaisis me'amelech, but he may prepare salt water, a small quantity of salt water of teva ben pitai, to use it then and there, to dip his bread into it, to add it to a cooked dish. Since he prepared only a small amount, it's evident that he intended to use it to flavor the food and not to pickle foods with it. Rabbi Yossi is machalik. Rabbi Yossi says, so what difference does it make if it's a lot or a little? The brine is the brine, it's still both salt water. So people will assume that salt water is permitted merely because of its small amount and conclude that any forbidden malacha on Shabbos that's done in a small amount is going to be mutter. Rather, it's a type of salt water that's mutter for one to prepare is nice and shemen batchila l'seicha mayim l'seicha melach. If he first adds oil to the water and then he adds the salt, or he first adds oil to the salt and then mixes them with water, the oil prevents the salt from mixing properly with the water, weakening the strength of the salt in the mixture. When the mixture is made this way, it's obvious that he won't be using it to preserve food, and is therefore permitted, but it will be more used as for a salad dressing or something like that, as opposed to pickling something, which would be a malacha of tanning. I mean, that's how you would be mechalik between what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Mishnah Gimel. Ein oichlin ezev yoin b'Shabbos. The next two Mishnahs discuss the Issa D'Rabbanan of medical treatments on Shabbos. The Chachamim were concerned that people might crush herbs to make medicines on Shabbos. So what's the problem over here? Shema yischak samamonim. Maybe he'll grind different herbs and plants, which would be a tolda of teichen. So teichen is asur midaraisa. They therefore asur in medical treatments on Shabbos. This issur applies only to treating minor aches and pains. However, if one's suffering from significant illness, if it causes him to be bedridden, he's a chelishish b'sakona. So then he definitely may treat it on Shabbos, not even a question. So ein oichlin ezev yain b'Shabbos. One may not eat ezev yain, a type of hyssop that grows among the thorns. It was used medically to kill intestinal worms. Lefisha ein meichel briim, because it's not the food of healthy people. It's therefore obvious that anyone who eats it is doing so for medical reasons and is subject to the prohibition of medical treatments. But he may eat yayezer. What is yayezer? In English, they translate it to be pennyroyal, which is effective in eliminating worms in the liver. And he can drink abuvroya, a liquid in which the wood of certain branchless trees were soaked into. This water was used to someone who drank exposed. This was used to cure someone who drank exposed water. In the times of the Mishnayos, someone who drank such water was at the risk of poisoning because of this possibility of snakes having injected their venom or their poison into it. So, because many healthy people also eat and drink them, so eating and drinking these items for medical reasons is mutter, since people think he's doing so as healthy people do. The Rabbanan answer such medical treatments are obviously being done specifically for medical purposes. The Chachamim's concern of medical treatment leading to crushing herbs, Shem Yislek Samamonim, was that Amaoratz, an unlearned person, will see such treatment being permitted on Shabbos and think they may also take medicine for this purpose. However, if the malacha does not appear to be a medical treatment, the observer will not make this mistake. A person may eat any food that healthy people eat, even for the purpose of healing. And he may drink any beverage that healthy people drink, even in order to heal himself. The Mishnah's rule means to include food and beverages only occasionally consumed by healthy people, such as those that would have some kind of adverse side effects. Chutz mimei the kalam v'kais ikrim, except for the water of certain palm trees in Eretz Yisrael, which refers to water from a certain spring in Eretz Yisrael that was located between two palm trees. The water was used as a stool softener and to clean the bowels. So hashayis mehem kais rishoin merape hazevel shabemeyav. Kaisheni Mishalshal, Kaishlishi, Menakes Bnei Me'ayim, Acha Adam Etzim Tzilulun K'derech Sheichnisa. People would drink this water it was a very, very strong detox. So, I think the reason why the Rav is telling us how much person could drink or should drink is because a person drinks more than that, he's going to wash out all his kishkas, not going to leave anything inside. The kais shel ikrim, the cup of sterility, a medicinal potion that causes people to become sterile. It was made by mixing wine with certain types of tree sap and powders of certain grass. It was used to cure jaundice as well as abnormal blood flow in women, and it has a side effect sometimes of causing sterility, giving rise to its name. It's interesting because the Gemara says that kol isha shedameha merubin, v'ladeseha merubin, isha who sees a lot of dam is going to have a lot of children. But over here, if we want to stop the dam, it's also going to stop the children. It goes together. And a woman who drinks this, a woman who has a big blood flow, abnormal blood flow, if she drinks 3 cups of this, it heals her. They're allowed to drink this. They're not allowed to drink this on Shabbos because the kais ikrim and the made the kolam are used for curing jaundice and are not drunk by healthy people. Likewise, the water of the palm trees is used to cure constipation. So drinking these items is an obvious medical activity and is going to be asur. Aval Shaisa, who made the kolam litzma v'sach shem shel ikrim shalei l'refuah. However, a healthy person would drink the water of a palm tree to quench his thirst. If he's walking there on Shabbos and that's what he has to drink, he's allowed to drink it because he's thirsty. V'sach shem and ikrim shalei l'refuah. He may anoint himself with the root oil, the oil mixed with the extracts of spices and vegetables, if he does not intend for healing, just to soften the skin. Although this type of activity is normally done only for medical reasons, since he didn't intend to do it as for a medical purpose, it's going to be mutter. Nevertheless, only a healthy person is allowed to do this because the parent is doing so for non-medical reasons. Somebody who is sick, however, may not take medicine even to quench his thirst, since people will mistakenly think that he's taking it as a cure for his illness. Right. Mishnah Dalet, HaChayshish B'shina, of somebody who has pain in his teeth. Le'yagama be'henes ha'choymet, he may not sip vinegar through them and then spit it out, because healthy people don't drink vinegar in this way, and it's therefore obvious that he's doing this to cure the pain in his teeth. Vinegar was used to cure toothaches because it's effective in reducing the inflammation and swelling of the gums. However, he may dip food into vinegar in his usual manner and eat it. And if he's thereby cured by dipping his food into it and eating it, he has not done anything wrong. Since it's common practice to eat foods dipped in vinegar, it's not apparent that he's doing this for refuah. Murcha milsa, that he's not doing it for refuah. There's no murcha milsa that he's doing it for refuah. Chayshish b'masnav, someone who feels pain in his loins, he may not shmear them with wine or vinegar because people would not anoint themselves with these liquids except in the case of medical need. But he may smear himself with oil even in order to relieve the pain, because even healthy people smear themselves with oil in order to soften the skin, which was common practice in the times of the Mishnah. But he may not smear himself with rose oil because it's very expensive, oil in which roses were heated in the sun, because it's expensive and it's therefore used only for medical purposes. However, princes may use rose oil to smear on their wounds to heal them, because such is their custom even on weekdays. Since princes could afford to buy rose oil, they use it to soften their skin and not just to treat wounds. In regard to princes smearing a wound with rose oil, it's not obvious medical treatment because they would do it anyways. Reb Shimon says, Kal Yisrael b'nei malachim heim. All the people of Klal Yisrael are like princes and are also permitted to smear rose oil on their wounds. Halacha doesn't discriminate between different groups within the Jewish people. Since princes b'nei malachim are mutter to treat their wounds with rose oil, the Chachamim did not answer such a treatment for any yid at all.